I always thought my life was perfect. I had a loving wife, Sarah, and a brother, Mike, who was more like my best friend. The three of us shared so many memories. Family trips, holidays, and late-night talks that made me feel lucky to have them in my life. But sometimes, perfection is just a mask hiding something darker. It started with small things. Sarah became distant. She wasn't the same warm, affectionate person I married. She'd spend hours on her phone, smiling at texts she wouldn't share with me. Mike, on the other hand, started visiting more often than usual. At first, I was happy. I thought he was just being the supportive brother he had always been. But something felt off. I remember one night when Mike came over while Sarah and I were watching a movie. As I stepped into the kitchen to grab snacks, I caught a glimpse of them exchanging a quick, nervous look. It wasn't the kind of look that siblings-in-law should share. My stomach tightened, but I shook it off, telling myself I was overthinking. Except these little moments kept piling up. One evening, Sarah told me she was heading out to catch up with an old friend. Her voice was casual, but she avoided looking me in the eyes. Mike called me later that same night, saying he was busy with work and couldn't stop by for our usual Friday beer. The two of them busy at the same time? My gut told me something wasn't right. The illusion of my perfect life was beginning to crack. I started to watch them closely. Their conversations seemed too comfortable, their laughter a little too private. A seed of suspicion had been planted in my mind, and it was growing fast. Then came the night that confirmed my worst fears. I found something, a text on Sarah's phone, a text from Mike. It wasn't just friendly. It was intimate, playful, and worse. It hinted at a secret they were keeping from me. My heart raced as I read it, my world crashing around me. But instead of confronting them, I made a decision. I keep quiet for now. If they thought I didn't know, I could gather the truth and make them face the consequences. Little did they know, their betrayal would soon shatter not just my world, but everyone else's too. The text I found on Sarah's phone was enough to make my blood run cold. It read, "Last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again. Same time next week." It was from Mike, my brother. I stared at the screen, hoping I'd misunderstood, but there was no mistaking the words. My chest felt tight, like someone had punched the air out of me. A wave of anger, betrayal, and disbelief crashed over me all at once. I wanted to storm into the bedroom and confront Sarah right there. I wanted to call Mike and demand answers. But something stopped me. I needed proof, real, undeniable proof. Otherwise, they'd just deny it and make me look like the fool. So I decided to wait and watch. The next few days were torture. I acted normal, smiling when I had to, laughing at Mike's jokes, and pretending I didn't notice Sarah sneaking glances at her phone. Every time they interacted, I studied them like a hawk, looking for any clue to confirm my suspicions. And then I caught them. It was a Friday evening. Sarah told me she was going out to run errands. I followed her. My hands were shaking as I tailed her car down streets I'd driven 100 times before. She pulled into a quiet cafe parking lot and got out of the car. I didn't need to wait long. A few minutes later, Mike's car rolled in. He stepped out, and they greeted each other with a hug that lasted a little too long. Far longer than a brother-in-law and sister-in-law should. I sat frozen in my car, watching as they walked into the cafe together. I couldn't bring myself to go inside. The sight of them sitting at a corner table, leaning in close, laughing like they were the only two people in the world, it was enough to crush me. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was betrayal in its rawest form. Driving home, my mind raced with questions. How long had this been going on? Did they ever feel guilty? Did I mean so little to the two people I loved and trusted the most? But even in my pain, I knew I couldn't let my emotions take over. If I confronted them now, they'd deny everything and sweep it under the rug. No, they needed to feel the weight of their actions. They needed to see the damage they'd caused. That night, I made a promise to myself. They thought they were clever, sneaking around behind my back. But I would be smarter. I would wait for the perfect moment to expose them and make sure they could never forget what they'd done. The days leading up to the family dinner were a blur of controlled chaos inside me. I carried my secret like a weight, my anger and heartbreak bubbling just beneath the surface. But I couldn't let them see it. Not yet. Mike and Sarah acted as if nothing had changed. Mike still cracked his usual jokes, flashing me his easy smile. Sarah went about her routine, occasionally asking if I was okay, as if she cared. The audacity of it all made my blood boil. I needed this dinner to be perfect, not for them but for my plan. The family had planned this gathering weeks ago, a rare occasion where everyone, parents, siblings, and even distant relatives, would be under one roof. It was supposed to be a night of laughter and bonding, but for me, it was something entirely different. It was the stage for my revenge. I spent hours preparing. Every word, every action, every moment of the dinner had to lead to the climax. There was no room for mistakes. If I misplayed this, they could twist the story, paint me as the villain, and escape without consequences. I wasn't going to let that happen. When the day finally came, I dressed like I was stepping into battle. A crisp shirt, polished shoes, and a calm, composed demeanor that masked the storm inside me. The dinner began like any other family gathering. The air was filled with chatter and the clinking of silverware. Mike sat across from me, laughing loudly at something one of our cousins said. Sarah sat next to me, playing the role of the perfect wife, her hand occasionally brushing mine as if she hadn't ripped my heart out days ago. I played along. I smiled at jokes, nodded at stories, and even poured Mike a drink. Inside, I felt like I was staring at a burning house while pretending it was a sunny day. As the meal went on, I watched them closely. The stolen glances, the subtle smirks, the way their knees brushed under the table when they thought no one was looking. They thought they were untouchable, but I had everything planned. The moment was coming, and they had no idea what was about to hit them. As dessert was served, I stood up, raising my glass. To family, I said, my voice steady but carrying just enough edge to make Sarah's hand pause mid-reach. The people we trust the most, who love us unconditionally. Everyone smiled and nodded, lifting their glasses. Sarah and Mike too. They had no clue this wasn't just a toast. I looked at them, my heart pounding in my chest. This was it. The calm was over. The storm was about to begin. The room was filled with laughter and warmth as I stood with my glass raised. My heart raced, but my face betrayed none of it. I looked around the table, my eyes lingering on Sarah and Mike. They both smiled back, completely unaware that their perfect little world was seconds away from shattering. To family, I repeated, letting the words hang in the air. The people we trust the most, who stand by us through thick and thin, who would never. I paused deliberately, my gaze locking onto Sarah, betray us. The laughter died down. An uncomfortable silence filled the room. Sarah's smile faltered, her eyes darting to mine, searching for something. Mike shifted in his seat, his confident grin replaced by a nervous twitch. I reached behind my chair and pulled out a small stack of papers. You see, I said, my voice calm but laced with venom. Family means everything to me. And when someone betrays that trust, it cuts deeper than any knife. Sarah's face turned pale. Mike's eyes widened. The rest of the family looked around, confused. What's going on? My mom asked, her fork frozen mid-air. I turned to her and smiled. Don't worry, Mom. You're about to find out. I held up the papers, printed screenshots of the texts between Sarah and Mike. The incriminating words stared back at everyone in bold, undeniable clarity. These, I said, placing the papers on the table for everyone to see, are the messages between my loving wife and my loyal brother. Gasps erupted around the table. My dad's jaw dropped. My sister covered her mouth. And my mom looked at Sarah and Mike in disbelief. Is this some kind of joke? One of my uncles asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. No joke, I replied coldly. While the rest of us were building bonds, these two were sneaking around behind my back. Sarah's hands shook as she reached for the papers, her face flushed with panic. Wait, this isn't what it looks like, she stammered, her voice trembling. Oh, it's exactly what it looks like, I shot back. Go ahead, Sarah. Read them out loud. Tell everyone here what you and Mike have been doing behind closed doors. Mike tried to interrupt, his voice rising in desperation. Look, it's not what you think. Save it. I snapped, slamming my hand on the table. The plates rattled, and the entire room fell silent. You had your chance to speak the truth. Now, everyone knows who you really are. Tears streamed down Sarah's face. Mike sat frozen, his usual confidence crumbling under the weight of his shame. I trusted you both, I said, my voice breaking for the first time. I gave you my heart, my loyalty, and you threw it all away. But tonight you face the consequences. I turned to the rest of the family. You've seen the proof. You've seen what they've done. I'll let you decide what kind of people they really are. With that, I grabbed my coat and walked out, leaving the chaos behind me. The stunned silence gave way to murmurs, then accusations, then outright yelling. My job was done. They thought they could betray me and get away with it. They thought I'd stay silent. But at that dinner table, in front of everyone, I reclaimed my dignity and left them to deal with the wreckage they caused. The days after the dinner were anything but quiet. The family was in complete disarray, and the fallout from the reveal rippled through everyone. Sarah tried calling me. At first, her messages were filled with anger, blaming me for ruining everything. Then, as days passed, her tone shifted. She begged me to meet her, to hear her out, claiming she had made a mistake. Mike, he disappeared. My once confident brother, who used to walk into every room like he owned it, went silent. No calls, no texts, just nothing. I wasn't surprised. For someone who had lived so boldly in his betrayal, he didn't seem to have the backbone to face the consequences. The rest of the family wasn't so quiet. My mom called, sobbing, asking how this could happen. My dad, always the composed one, sounded defeated when he asked, "Where do we go from here?" I didn't have answers for them. All I knew was that I needed to rebuild, away from the lies, the betrayal, and the people who had hurt me. One afternoon, Sarah showed up at my apartment. I almost didn't answer the door, but something in me wanted closure. She stood there, disheveled and tearful, holding a letter in her trembling hands. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I don't know what I was thinking. I don't even have an excuse." For the first time, she looked genuinely broken. Not the manipulative person I had come to despise, but someone who realized the depth of the damage she had caused. "I don't want your excuses, Sarah," I said, my voice firm but calm. "You didn't just betray me. You betrayed everything we built together." "I know," she said, choking on her tears. "I'll regret this for the rest of my life." She handed me the letter and left without another word. I didn't open it right away. I wasn't sure I cared to know what she had to say anymore. Mike, on the other hand, stayed far away. He didn't call or try to explain himself, but I learned from my sister that he'd moved out of town, ashamed to face the family. Part of me wanted to confront him, to demand answers. But another part of me realized that his silence was his own punishment. He had to live with the choices he made, just as I had to live with their impact. With time, the pain dulled. I started focusing on myself, things I had neglected while trying to hold onto a broken marriage. I took up running again, something that used to bring me peace. I reconnected with old friends, people who reminded me of who I was before all of this. The family slowly began to heal as well. While things were never the same, they came to understand that what happened wasn't my fault. My parents, though heartbroken, supported me. My siblings, even the ones closest to Mike, reached out to check on me regularly. One evening, months later, I sat on my balcony, watching the sunset. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. This wasn't the life I had planned, but it was mine to rebuild. And I was determined to make it better than the one I'd lost. Reflecting on everything, I realized one thing: betrayal doesn't define who you are. How you rise from it does. I wouldn't let Sarah and Mike's actions destroy me. Instead, I used them as a reminder to value loyalty, love, and self-respect. As for Sarah and Mike, their story was theirs to tell. Mine was just beginning. As the story concludes, here's something to think about. Betrayal can break you, but it can also be the start of something stronger. Have you ever faced a situation where someone you trusted let you down? How did you rise above it? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments. I'd love to hear your stories. And if you enjoyed this journey of heartbreak, resilience, and redemption, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another gripping tale. Your support means the world to me, and together, we can explore more stories that inspire, challenge, and connect us. Thank you for watching.